Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Theodore and thank you so much for joining me today. So I'm going to do my first ever weekly forecast for the channel. I have yet to dive into the waters of this type of video, but I put out a community post I think last week seeing if that would be something you would be interested in me doing. And a lot of you said, yeah, give it a try. So, this is my first attempt giving it a try. And the way I'm planning on doing this, guys, because if you've been familiar with my work so far here, I really just kind of pick like a major thing happening for the week, or I'll muse and talk about something that's coming down the line, or, I've done the monthlies and I'm just starting to, tap into doing more educational stuff for the channel here because I am a teacher, I do teach. So I want to bring more teaching to the channel, just generally speaking. And then, of course, I don't know if I just said this before, but, doing all signs kind of videos depending on the transit. I really like focusing on like the moons or like a big transit happening where I could do some all signs work for y'all. So, yeah, that's kind of where I've been at, but I have not done like these weekly forecasts or anything like that because honestly, I wasn't really sure if that's something I wanted to do. I don't really feel like maybe I'll feel, like this is something I'm definitely meant to do here after today and maybe next week. But just generally speaking, I don't know. It just wasn't really something I thought would be my style. But you know what? I thought about it and I really want to bring, some perspective here for you guys. And let me know what you think for sure. Leave me a comment, by the by the end of the video and just let me know how you think this was for you. What I'm going to do specifically is I'm going to go through what I feel are the biggest moments of the week. So I'm not going to be like some astrologers that literally go through every moon sign, like every moon, transit to kind of link together all the planets. Like for me, these weeklies will be sort of like the highlights of the week. So, and I think some astrologers do it that way, but there is one astrologer I'm thinking about who really goes detailed into, every single degree of the moon as it transits and like aspects a certain planet. He really gets into it. And I don't know, that's definitely something I'll never do. But intuitively, just sharing, the bigger transits of the week is something I'm totally capable of doing, and I feel like that's definitely more my cup of tea. So that being said, guys, let me just see what I have, and I'll be throwing up charts, based upon the day. I'll say the date and the day, and that chart will pop up on the screen. But yeah, I just sort of want to start off with just the basic moons that are going to be happening this week. So we're going to start off Sunday, I believe, like right now into Monday tomorrow, and I think even maybe going into Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to have a Libra moon. So we're going to have a Libra moon phase. We're going to have a Scorpio moon phase this week. Then, of course, we're going to have a Sagittarius moon phase this week, which will bring us our big full moon in Scorpio, which I already made a video on that I just posted yesterday. And I'm going to make a part 2 to that, which I will go into the all signs reading, so to speak, on that. And then the week ends with the moon in Virgo. Okay, so those are the moon phases that we have. Those are the signs that the moon will be activating in your birth chart. And yeah, I think there's only one really, aside from the full moon, I think there'll be a moon in, let's see, it might be the tail end of the Sagittarius moon cycle or into Virgo, but it will be it's after the full moon in Sagittarius, the moon will end up trining Aries, which I'll get into in a minute, which I think is, as far as like talking about any aspects for the moon, aside from the full moon, of course, I think that those aspects to Aries are going to be really helpful. And I think after the full moon, having that moon aspect to, I think it's a trining. Yeah, the moon's going to be trining in Sagittarius Aries after the full moon is over. And there's a lot of stuff still going on in Aries, with, Mars is still there, of course, and Chiron is still there. So I think like after the full moon with that moon trining Aries, that's also something I really wanted to touch on. All right, guys, so Tuesday, Monday, I'm not going to talk about tomorrow because, it's sort of just the same that we're feeling today, honestly. But Tuesday's a big day. Tuesday, the sun will go into Gemini, and then Neptune will be sextiling Jupiter and kind of Venus at the same time, because Venus will conjoin Jupiter within the next day or so, which I'll talk about too. But Tuesday, yeah, the big event, honestly, is the sun goes into Gemini. So this is the first taste that we're going to have of Gemini season. And this is also the first kind of energies that we're going to feel that are building up to this full moon that will be happening on Thursday. So with any ingress with the sun, I do feel we feel those ingresses pretty intensely. So we're going to feel that shift from this very Taurian energy, the, I want to say the groundedness. I think like, even though there was so much excitement, with Taurus and all that, all those crazy things that have been going on with Jupiter, Uranus, and the new moon, of course, which was a major activation point for what's coming for the full moon. But, I do feel things were still kind of on the slower side. Like after, the Aries stuff has calmed down, the eclipse and the retrograde story has ended. Now that Mercury landed the plane into some Earth energy on the runway, I still feel like the last week or so has been like a little slow in the Taurus sector. I feel like if you even look at the news in many ways, a lot of the things that were amped up and just in the media in our face, like the protests, for example, like, I feel like the news is not covering it anymore in a weird way. Like it's not front and center. So that's a really good example of how like things sort of just grounded a little bit. There's a lot of shit still happening in the world, don't get me wrong, and probably in our life in the Taurus stuff. But I mean, if you notice, I feel like we kind of hit that peak. And the sun, as it was sort of like ending its transit through Jupiter and all this other stuff. And yeah, the Cazimi kind of bringing us like maybe a new freshness, a new kind of illumination in, all the things that Jupiter could be providing for you in this time. I feel like things kind of, we're settling down a little still. I feel like we all felt that. But now with the sun going into Gemini, I feel like we're going to be like, it's like almost like turning on, I'm just getting a vision of like someone turning on like a big switch in like a power plant. Like you ever see those movies where someone just like turns the power back on and everything lights up and whoo, we're ready to go. I kind of feel like that is kind of the vibe we're going to get as the sun enters Gemini. Like we're going to feel this gust of wind, and we're going to, maybe even just get like a jolt, of some kind of, and we're going to be ready for the full moon energies. And then of course, all of the pileups that are going to start occurring in Gemini. And when I say pileup, I just mean within like literally a couple of weeks, you're going to have Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury all in, and the sun all in Gemini. So huge vibe shift, which I talked about in another video I made. So, but yeah, also Neptune will be sextiling Jupiter, on Tuesday still. And that's actually been something that's been going on. I don't think I've talked about it as much, but Neptune's influence and aspects, just throughout all of the astrological weather, period, full stop, through all of the stuff we've been dealing with, there's still this element. It's been a huge subtle influence, in the Neptunian illusion, and also maybe even some of the dream building that a lot of us may be feeling. I think a lot of us are ready to bring a dream into being, or to, after the Aries stuff, which was all about identity, all those Aries transits and the eclipse were very much, in my opinion, about identity and a new birthing of self, So this Neptune, I feel like, has double meanings for it, but because it's been sextiling Taurus this whole time, and these massive planets, including Jupiter at the anaretic degree, this is, for me, I think these are good vibes, like almost like, okay, we have dreams, like we have goals and motivations, and, even like things that we're falling in love with or trying our best to reconnect with, because Venus is so activated at the end here too with Jupiter. And I think Neptune is just adding to this, creative potential, for all of that. So that's just something I wanted to mention. Thursday, the full moon in Sagittarius. It's the big day, the big event. I spoke in depth about that in my video yesterday, so definitely go check that out after this one. But Yeah, guys, I think the Jupiter full moon is going to be the culmination of the trigger point for the new moon in Taurus that we had. And I think this is a beautiful time and a very important time to expand our horizons on some of the things that we might have had our intentions set on with that. So, again, I talked in depth about the full moon in Sagittarius, but I do feel we're with this, as Gemini is starting to pick up and all these transits will begin to hit Gemini and ingress into Gemini, this full moon is sort of like, okay, well, what adventure are you ready to go on? Like, what are you trying to expand in now? What have you planted into the ground that you can now expand on? Or what are you learning from all of this? And could you put some of your learning and experiences into action now? And for this time of the year, the spring going into summer, these are some of the most potent times for, I think, all of us, to kind of have that extra energy with the sunlight staying out longer. And, I think just after everything we've been through, I mean, some of us are probably still down and out, I'm sure about that, but, Sagittarius energy should hopefully give you, some insights into, whatever you can do to move on, in some way, to move forward, to expand, to learn, to become more active and just activate, stuff. Let's see here. And then we have Jupiter and Venus conjunct now. So as soon as that occurs, we have, Venus will, Venus ingresses into Gemini, will conjoin the sun. Okay. So I pretty much said that, I think, already. Or no, I didn't say that. I'm sorry. So I was still on Thursday. So the full moon, happens with the Jupiter-Venus conjunction. So that's also really, really massive. And I think I also spoke about that yesterday. But the Jupiter-Venus conjunction with that Neptune trine happening is, it's really a point where I think we will be able to see the dreams that we might have for ourselves. Because I keep saying ourself because the Aries story was a really big trigger point for identity in some way, shape, or form for you. So I think the theme of self and the theme of identity and bringing some new identity to the world is, I think, still a major story for all of us. And Sagittarius is a fire sign. And I think the activation of self is also having its moment to be birthed in that very Jupiterian and expansive way, where, we really should have some better idea of how we can, come to the world and show the world something. Even if your world is only consisting of, a local environment or, maybe just a couple of people, just like coming to the world in a new way and not being afraid to reveal yourself in that, in that space. So Neptune's influence on this Jupiter-Venus conjunction, I think, is, pretty positive. I really like it. And it's definitely setting up for when Jupiter and Venus literally will follow each other into Gemini with the sun by the end of the week. So these are good omens, I think, and then Pluto will be trining and sextiling the full moon, something I also mentioned in my full moon video from yesterday, that I think the positive influence from Pluto will make this full moon even furthermore transformative. I think there's a shamanic moment for real transformation here, and I'm not saying that lightly, because the word transformation gets thrown around all the time in self-help, self-development, and astrology, yada, yada. But, I really do think, because we're in such an age of Aquarius with Pluto, this is a moment where, we can use the word transformation in a really positive way. So Pluto's influence is just adding to, the potency of that new moon in Taurus to this full moon in Sagittarius. All right, guys. Well, Friday, Venus ingresses into Gemini. So literally the next day, Venus goes into Gemini and joins the sun. Yay. So I don't really know what else to say about that, except for after the full moon experience, we will now have the beauty and the love and the, just the pleasurable aftermath of potentially what revelations or what actions, come to you and what becomes very clear to you. That Venusian energy, I feel, will, bring that kind of connectedness even furthermore with that Gemini energy. So, we have to remember Gemini is ruled by Mercury. It's a very communicative sign. It's very fluid in the way it perceives and acts in the world. So when you bring Venus into Gemini, you're really just amping up, even love. I think love connections are potentially very, very potential, and not just romantic love, but just feeling love and pleasure from things you might be actively engaged in. And maybe there's a lot of stuff that you're going to learn or experience or plan that are very, I feel like there's a lot of, positive, just positive potential that can come from this Venus transit. So I really like this. I really love how the sequential order from all of the personal planets and the sun, and then of course the massive Jupiter ingress, they're kind of all following each other. And because Jupiter and Venus are benefic, meaning they're such good, positive, for the most part, they're known in astrology for being benefics, bringing good luck and bringing joy and happiness and abundance and all those fun words. And they're following each other all into Gemini. And the vibe shift's going to be massive. It really is. So then, but yeah, and then Pluto will still kind of trine in a way. It's still going to be trining. It really is. It's still going, even though it was still subtly influencing the anaretic degrees of Taurus. As soon as we get into Gemini, those are where the true trines, are occurring here. So I know I said Pluto was trining, I said Pluto was trining the full moon. No, I'm still stand corrected. But, it also is true that when you have a 29th degree and then you have Pluto, at 1 degree Aquarius, it still is going to influence a little bit of that Taurian part, because it's so close, to the trigger point of 0 degrees Gemini. So that's just what I like to say sometimes, trigger points for, various degrees in, for aspect's sake. So, but Pluto really will be trining the full moon, of course, because that's, fresh in Gemini and the Sagittarius part of the moon where that was happening. But now that Venus is in the party of Gemini, the trine is definitely still occurring there. So again, guys, transformation in these particular energies, these particular parts of your life, involving Venus, involving the sun. The sun is not Kazemiing the Venus, but it's pretty damn close. So these are all, I think we're really going to feel, a lot of this upliftment, as the end of the week, occurs. And this is just so great for after a full moon in Sagittarius. This is just, you couldn't ask for a better end of the week with massive, yearly anticipated transits. This has been a yearly anticipated. The Jupiter ingress in the Gemini has been something all astrologers have had their eyes on, So this is, we couldn't have asked for better setups. Trines to Jupiter and Venus while it's still at the anaretic degree. Pluto trining and sextiling. I mean, we're dealing with very fluid and very interconnected and easy, not easy necessarily, but just very, everyone's being friends. Everyone is friendly right now. So that's great. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, as the moon exits sort of that Sagittarius, the last degrees in Sagittarius, when it gets into the teens degrees and into the 20s of Sagittarius, it will be making trines to Aries. So again, after that full moon and as the ingress of Venus into Gemini, we're going to have the trine happening with the Sagittarius moon to Aries, which I think is going to bring even more just good inner energy, good inner, we're going to feel in the Sagittarius part of your life, especially, you're going to feel just in harmony with the Aries stuff too. So the Mars Chiron story, which is still playing out and, is going to, again, I feel like we're really going to feel like this is when we're really going to come over the hill and start sliding down, in a much more, understandable way. Like, I think we're really going to understand, how we can work with Mars a little bit better in Aries. Because, I don't know what Mars is doing in the Aries part of your life right now, as it's a wild card, just chilling with Chiron in the North Node, but all of those heavy conjunctions are over now. So Mars is past Chiron and it's sliding down the hill and it's making its way towards Taurus now. So that trine from the moon, I think, is really, I like it. I do. I like it. And we're going to feel I feel like we're going to feel a little, after that full moon activation as well, there's going to feel like there's going to be a harmony within during that Sagittarius part of your life. Now, let's talk about Sunday, because Saturday is just sort of a continuation of, let's see here, Sagittarius, Saturday is just sort of a continuation of what's been going on Friday. The moon is just sort of cruising its way towards, Virgo. So I think that's what's going on. Is that what's going on? Yeah, it's heading its way towards Virgo. So, so Saturday we don't really need to talk about, but Sunday the Jupiter finally ingresses into Gemini, massive moment, and conjoins Venus and the Sun. Pretty much, I would consider them all conjunctions. For me, I kind of consider a conjunction influence to stay within a 3 to 5 degree orb. And so, by the time Jupiter literally ingresses into Gemini, Venus and the Sun are already there. And you can imagine imagine if like a stick of dynamite decides to go off, with Jupiter and Venus just sort of there. But this stick of dynamite just blowing up is going to be, I think, a very expansive. And I feel like if you can imagine, I'm just getting a vision, guys, and I'm not condoning psychedelics or anything like that. But it's almost like the moment where like the mushrooms hit or the acid hits or the ayahuasca trip hits, where your mind just gets like, oh my God, you just start to understand like the nature of reality and God. It's like when Jupiter ingresses with the Sun and Venus there, we're just going to be, I think we're just going to have like our heart explode. I feel like our mind might even explode. But I feel like because there's so much benefic energy, there's so much positive influence that has been occurring with the trines and the sextiles from Neptune and Pluto and all this other stuff. To me, this is going to be a massive, beautiful and positive and just optimistic awakening of some kind. I just think like things are just going to be like massively clear, which is a great setup for the next week, which we'll talk about, later down the line. But that's awesome. And, and as soon as Jupiter gets into Gemini, Pluto is still trining. The Pluto activation is still happening. And, which furthermore makes my prediction here, very transformative, and again, I just feel like, again, I'm not condoning drugs whatsoever. I'm a sober guy. My partying days are long over, but the power of spiritual psychedelic use, I'm definitely, if you're mentally stable, I feel like if you feel that's something you ever want to experience, it is worth it. If you do it in a very safe and spiritual setting with the right people. But that's the kind of energy I'm talking about here. When your heart blows open and your mind blows open and you realize that we're in a whole new dimension of energy now, because this is the start of massive Gemini energy, massive. And then when Mercury gets there, then we're going to even activate that even more, because then Mercury will be in its ruling sign of Gemini, of course, as we all know. So yeah, literally my last note here is, guys, is Pluto will amplify the ingresses and influences. I cannot stress that enough. These are the moments where Pluto really can shine in our face, because a lot of the times Pluto transits don't really affect, I feel like Pluto is just a constant undertone of a, transpersonal transformation, which means, we sort of on a very deep level kind of feel what Pluto might be doing in Aquarius, most specifically in your life, because that's really what it's ruling right now. But when we have like a massive Jupiter ingress, when we have, massive vibe shift from the Taurus Aries part of our stories these last couple of months, now to shifting so much energy into Gemini, plus this Pluto trine, like this is where, in my opinion, you can get specific with Pluto. Like you can forecast it and you can put it to use, and use that astrological shamanic magic that I always talk about, guys. I'm a shamanic magical practitioner. I have a shamanic background when I used to study energy healing back in the day. I think in the when I started the channel a couple of weeks ago, I spoke about my studies with Andean shamanism and energy medicine practices, hands-on energy medicine practices, not plant medicine. And when it comes to these Pluto moments of shamanic transformation and just transpersonal influence, where we really can start to understand, what is transforming within our life and what needs to be transformed in our life. These are the moments where I think Pluto really, shines brightly, because we're dealing with such heavy influences in Gemini now. And so, yeah, work with this energy. Use astrological magic. Meditate with Pluto. Figure out how this can help you in some way, shape, or form. And for me, astrology is half, fate and destiny, and also half, putting our own co-creative magic into the transits, where we can manipulate even fate and destiny, guys. That's the whole point of magic, to understand with intention something you would desire and something you would like to have in your reality. And using the symbolism of the transits of the planets, we can, almost like amplify that for our benefit, So yeah, guys, that's my intuitive weekly forecast for the week coming up. Please let me know what you think. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new, like the video, and comment. All of that would really help the growth. And yeah, y'all, that's all I have today, and I will see you very soon for the next video. Bye now.